conspiracy in the making. Can you fill us in?
Sure. It's the show is a murder mystery, primarily a murder mystery and a thriller, and the kind of classic. Gideon and I have talked about it sort of having a classic '70s paranoid thriller quality, where Jason Isaac's character is a legal attaché, which is an FBI agent. He's stationed in Jerusalem. He starts to investigate a murder of an American, and what seems like a very, in the grand scheme of things, insignificant murder. It's just a murder. Turns out to not be just a murder, but the beginning of a much bigger story. And as he dives deeper into it, he starts to uncover a very, very big conspiracy. And the show follows that conspiracy from multiple storylines. In some ways, using the structure that Heroes had or The Touch had, where we told multiple stories that then converge onto one another. This does a similar thing by telling the stories of the different actors, players involved in this grand conspiracy. And under the guise of this archaeological kind of site in Jerusalem are secrets that are uncovered, and they are thousands of years old, and some of these secrets are potentially very dangerous.
A lot of your TV has had an international flair. What is it like to actually shoot in a location rather than faking it on a soundstage?
Well, I have to say that it has been the bane of my existence for the last dozen years, a 10-year decade at least, to have to use Los Angeles, which is fabulous to shoot in, but it isn't Tokyo and it isn't Paris and it isn't Africa. And so whenever you had to shoot something, you always had to turn it into something else. And so we got very good at that, obviously. In Hollywood, there's a reason why Hollywood is in Los Angeles, because you can double lots of places for it. But it's enormously difficult to paint out palm trees and to put yellow taxis in for New York and all that kind of stuff. So to be able to actually go someplace and point the camera, and when you pointed the camera, everything that you saw from the camera to the infinity was the actual location that you wanted to be in was fantastic. And if people walked by in the background, well, they belong because they are people walking by in the background. And so it was incredible, and we took advantage of these exquisite, amazing locations. It's a show that's very much a location show. We built very little, and we built a couple of sets, but for the most part, everything was on location. So we were kind of a traveling circus.
Did you go to network television when you came with this idea?
We did. We went when Gideon and I wrote it, we wrote it on spec. We wrote the pilot on spec, and so it was not a developed project for USA. And then we went out with the script, and we went to kind of the place that we felt was going to give us the most hours of television, and so USA was very committed to it from the very beginning, and felt like this was a project that would really push the boundaries of their own network, which they really wanted to do, and so that's how we ended up there.
And you very much enjoy the idea of doing an internet component, a comic book component, telling different aspects of the story from all those things. Is that very much a part of this?
Yes, absolutely. I think that nowadays it's very hard to not have those components on a show. When you realize that the audience is everywhere and is on all of their devices, they're on their mobile devices and their iPads and their computers. And if that's where they're living, then you want to reach them where they live. And also, I think with a story like this, it has a tremendous amount of content, and It is a participating kind of show. It's a show that allows the audience to search and dive and find information and to, no pun intended, to dig deeper, and it allows them to find all this, especially because so much of what we're dealing with is actually real. The locations are real, some of the conspiracy that we're talking about is real, the prophecies that we talk about, the actual archaeological artifacts that are in the show are real, and so there's a tremendous amount for the audience to participate on, and they can participate through all of these various apps and web devices.
Is it possible that Dig will go beyond this initial 6 episodes?
Yes, I mean, first of all, we have an order to do 6, but we also know that in success, this particular story can expand to say 12 episodes if we were asked to do that, and so we're fully capable of doing that. But on top of that, the idea was actually designed to be a franchisable idea, one that could be with a character like Peter Connolly, who again, like I said, is an FBI agent stationed in foreign countries, and every country in the world has an American consulate, and every consulate has a legal attaché or someone who is stationed there that investigates crimes against Americans and by Americans. And so the idea is that this character that we created could very easily find himself stationed in another country, and then we could take advantage of a unique location. And as you know, the world is becoming much more open for production than it used to be. It's we now have a smaller footprint that you need to actually film. You don't have to have the giant trucks parked outside in order to film a scene anymore. You can put the entire lighting package in a van, and the cameras are smaller and the crews are smaller, and so it's made location work really much simpler. And I think a lot of cities and countries are welcoming and promoting and encouraging production to come by giving tax incentives and rolling out the red carpet for them. And we certainly took advantage of much of that in Israel, and their willingness and openness to having us come was a huge benefit for our production. And so we think that this particular franchise could take advantage of that in other locations.
But just to continue on that, the plot is Jerusalem based, right?
For this story. And this story has a beginning and a middle and
Yeah,
end.
but you're relocating.
Yes.
So how is that going to figure into
Well,
play?
so we have obviously filmed a fair amount there, and then we had to pack up and leave. But fortunately, we are going to be shooting in New Mexico, and in some ways that's going to be an advantage because we had a whole component of the show that was actually set in America that we were shooting in Israel, which was difficult. That will make that part of the show easier. We are now also scouting locations in the Mediterranean. Unfortunately, the Mediterranean has various places that can double for Jerusalem, and you want an ancient place, you want the stone buildings, the stone streets, you want that kind of high contrast light, and so we are literally, Gideon is hopping on a plane tomorrow and with a scout group, and we're going to go scouting for new locations. And so, and again, as I said with Heroes and Touch in my last couple of shows, this was not something that was unique to us. It's filming something for something else. And so we're just going to have to do that now for Jerusalem. Fortunately, we've set the template. We've got a lot of exteriors that we've already established, and so now we have to match those exteriors.
Question: with all the frustration, I'm changing subjects here because we're going to end in a second. With all the frustrations you have with Heroes and the writer's strike and all that stuff, do you see Heroes Reborn as an opportunity to sort of do it the way you wanted to do it without all the hassles?
Well, there is one thing that is an advantage, and that is that Heroes Reborn has a beginning and a middle and an end. It's a set number of episodes, and I think that this has now become a very modern style of making content. Whether, the event series or the mini series, whatever you want to call it, that can be open-ended if in success. And rather than looking at it as an ongoing series, you look at it as a franchise or a sequel or a prequel or an event. And I had always felt that Heroes lent itself, because it was about multiple characters around the world, an undisclosed number of characters, that we could repopulate the show and start brand new with fresh stories. So yes, it does feel like it maybe is the right time for a reboot. All right, thank you guys.
When to show you this.